Namaste to Guruji and Jai Guruji to everyone who's listening. एक बार फिर मैं तू के chapters and continuation पढ़ने के लिए आई हूँ. तो सबसे पहले शुरुआत करूँगी as always शुक्राने के साथ. शुक्राना to Sonia Aunty and the entire Sangat Parivar, because whenever I do the seva, it forces me to relive those golden moments that we spent with Guru Sahib. And there is nothing better than those thoughts. And everything in your journey, like I always say, is not about, happily ever after or hunky dory, but it reinforces acceptance, it reinforces faith. And I am very, very, very thankful to Guru Sahib for that. We've heard a lot of Sangat say that Guruji, casually कहते थे, but उनकी हर बात में, whether it's being casually said or he's joking around, it had a meaning. And Guruji would say that तुम लोग 0 watt के बल्ब हो और मैं 1000 watt का current. So imagine, when a shunya like us are receiving, the bulb can explode because we cannot even handle his divinity, his grace. So he made it easier for us to absorb, to understand. He, just कहते हैं ना, when we piecemeal things, कि kindergarten के बच्चे को तुम और हिसाब से पढ़ाते हो, post graduation में या जो PhD कर रहा हो उसको किसी और तरीके से पढ़ाते हो, and that's exactly what Guruji did. But the essence is that he always said, direct connection. मेरे साथ कनेक्शन जोड़ो, मुझे अपनी मैं दे दो, मैं यानी कि ईगो. और तीसरी चीज जो वो बोलते थे कि जब मानते हो ना तो मांगने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. एंड विच इज वेरी वेरी डीप. अगर हम अपने गुरु को मानते हैं और गुरु की मानते हैं तो हमें कुछ मांगने के लिए, क्या मांगने के लिए बचा क्या है फिर? बिकॉज हमने तो फिर सिर्फ एक्सेप्ट करना है, राइट? क्योंकि जो गुरुजी हमें दे रहे हैं, जो वो कर रहे हैं, जिस हालत में रख रहे हैं, उससे बेटर हमारी किस्मत में, हमारी तकदीर में हो ही नहीं सकता. बिकॉज ही ऑलवेज गिव्स अस बेटर देन वी डिजर्व. The one thing I want to say again is that we may understand, we may not understand, but we must accept his sweet will. And that's why seva, सिमरन, समर्पण गुरुजी सब की झोली में डालें. Without any further ado, आज की रीडिंग शुरू करते हैं. So in the first 6 chapters, I think this is my 4th session. I've had 3 sessions before. So the first 6 chapters were about how Guruji invited my soul into his darbar, what were my first impressions, and how, as a student, my academics was most important. And like I said, कि जिसको जिस टाइम पे जिस डोज की जरूरत होती है गुरुजी वही देते हैं. सो मेरा विश्वास बनाने के लिए he asked me questions about my upcoming exam paper, and that was life changing for me, because probably अगर मैं किसी की health bless होते हुए देखती तो मैं उसको as a student, as a teenager इतना नहीं appreciate करती, because we take certain things for granted. And health was not what I was looking for back then. My academics was the most important, and somebody who's able to predict an exam paper cannot be an ordinary human being. But this was his way of showing. And yet he would show us certain things, he would say certain things, but समझ वो उतना ही आने देते थे जितना वो चाहते थे. जैसे कहते हैं ना कि सामने सब कुछ हो रहा है लेकिन अकल के ऊपर पर्दा पड़ा हुआ है. That was our life. जो आज हमें समझ है, जो आज गुरुजी के बारे में थोड़ी बहुत अवेयरनेस है, आई थिंक अगर बैक देन उस टाइम हो जाती तो it would have been a different life. But like we say, everything according to his design and his sweet will. So chapter 7, showers of his blessings. So I talked about how in 2011, we'd lost our source of income, we had 2 little kids. But the beauty is that Guruji kept our faith intact, which could not have been possible without his blessings in the first place. And like I say, faith is something very fragile. बहुत नाजुक होता है विश्वास. जब कोई जरा ऊंच नीच हो जाए तो सबसे पहले आपका विश्वास डोलता है, आपका विश्वास डगमगाता है. एंड यही हमें नहीं करना. And this is my favorite line and a favorite sort of analogy, the best way to explain that when there is acceptance, actually it all starts with faith. Okay, so faith is like the first milestone or the step on your spiritual path. आपका विश्वास बनता है हौले हौले इनकी कृपा से, right? If he doesn't want you in his darbar for whatever reason, call it your karmic debt, your whatever, it is up to him कि कितना विश्वास जगाना है, क्या उन्हें दिखाना है, कितना आपको जोड़ना है, कब जोड़ना है, किस तरह जोड़ना है. सबसे पहले the first step is faith. जब faith आना शुरू हो जाता है, that's a game changer. Why? Because we start accepting. I'm not saying we start understanding necessarily. We start accepting. Once we start accepting, जब accept कर ही लिया, तो आपके अंदर क्या जागृत हुआ? Surrender, समर्पण. और जब समर्पण जागृत होता है, तो हम इस कायनात की blessings को, अपने गुरु साहिब की blessings को attract करते हैं. So, blessings सब चाहते हैं, लेकिन वो टेस्ट जो इम्तिहान that गुरु साहिब may put us through, वो हम नहीं चाहते. Because anything goes south, हम गुरुजी के साथ गुस्सा हो जाते हैं, लड़ना शुरू हो जाते हैं. ऐसे कैसे हो गया, ये क्यों हो गया, मैं तो आपकी इतनी अच्छी भगत हूं. But we have to understand at all times that गुरुजी हमारे लिए कितना कुछ कर रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, ये हम ना जानते हैं, ना जान सकते हैं, ना समझ सकते हैं. तो अगर हमें कुछ करना है तो सिर्फ विश्वास और शुक्राना करना है. So in July 2012, after surviving over a year of living hand to mouth with no running income and 2 small kids, I get another dream. And dream के बारे में भी गुरुजी का सपना आना is never a coincidence. It is not possible to get Guruji's dream जब तक गुरुजी वो मुकर्रर न करे कि आज मुझे फलाने के सपने में आना है. आप रात दिन गुरु साहिब की बातें कर सकते हो, लेकिन आपको कभी सपना नहीं आएगा. ये मैं आपको एक्सपीरियंस से बता रही हूँ. Till Guruji decides that he actually wants to come and speak to you. So sapne mein I see that Guruji is saying Shani is very angry, and he was referring to Vikram in this case. कि विक्रम के से शनि महाराज बहुत नाराज है. लेकिन गुरुजी कहते हैं और मैंने तेरी फाइल निकाल दी है. I had to fight very hard with Shani, which is Saturn, because we won the case and everything will be okay. So basically I think his dream का तात्पर्य ये था कि because of that phase in 2011 when nothing was working out, गुरुजी सपने में आके ये मैसेज उन्होंने दिया कि विक्रम का शनि बहुत खराब था. शनि was very upset, लेकिन मैंने विक्रम की फाइल निकाली, शनि के साथ लड़ाई करी, एंड अब सब ठीक हो जाएगा क्योंकि हम ये मुकदमा जीत गए हैं. So और उसी टाइम, right after the dream, Vikram had an interview scheduled for a VP position at a firm in Manhattan. Now, if you've been running your own business for a couple years, your mindset changes, and switching back to corporate life was a change. That, combined with wanting a job at a certain level, even made it harder. Top positions in most companies are filled via internal networks, and very rarely do organizations bring a candidate without any referrals. However, the interview went well, and he was offered the role at the salary he wanted. This was Guruji's grace to him. And back then, he was not much of a believer. एक तुम, नए जुड़ना शुरू करते हो, ऊपर से आपकी लाइफ में ये हो जाता है. Your faith is even set back. But how Guruji sometimes overcompensates to really show who he is. And I was not too far behind on getting launched into the world of corporate America. I had never worked here, and this was even more challenging. But in his world, even the word impossible means I am possible. It was a rough couple of months of leaving my 2-year-old at the daycare and driving from North Jersey to Princeton for my IT training. However, in October of 2012, I was offered a role of a business analyst at Express Scripts via Cognizant Technology Solutions. So after a phone call, I was called for an on-site, in-person interview. That morning, I had a dream of Guruji again. And the dream was as follows. Guruji was pacing up and down a campus, and when I got to that venue, it was the same campus that I saw in my dream. I thought to myself, this is an indication that perhaps I will get this job. I completed the interview, came home, and started telling people I would, excuse me, I would get this job as a business analyst at Express Scripts. One day went by, then a week, then a second week, and finally a third week passed without a word. And Vikram started telling me that normally they don't wait so long to fill these consulting positions. By now, you would have heard from them. And the very fact you didn't means that you did not get the job. And I was fixated onto my dream and confident that this place was meant to be. The same week, I got a call from the same place for the same role, but in a completely different team. They did a phone screen and I was offered, the role on the fly. Same client, same role, but for a different team. I started working immediately, but was extremely nervous because I had never been in this particular role and I knew nothing about IT, and what the job entails. So after a few days of receiving my laptop, I was literally getting paid for nothing because we were in 2012. People in US will remember that we were hit by this hurricane called Sandy. So the East Coast was hit badly in 2012 with Hurricane Sandy, which further delayed the start of my work for another couple of weeks. So this meant, not writing any business requirements, no documents to write, and everything in New Jersey and New York had come to a standstill for a couple weeks with the flooding and power outages. The place we were living in did not have a single power outage, and it was a paid vacation where we hung out, we ate, we watched movies, and life came back to normal a few weeks later, and I finally got my laptop. We were already in December by that time, and I was assigned a job of authoring my first ever document for the team. Now, when I had got my foot in the door, it was based on the fact that I had some prior experience. So again, sure enough, who comes to my rescue? Our main man, our Guru Sahib. So a co-worker offered to help and ended up authoring the entire document. And as his plan would have it, I did not have to write a single word. That year, our team ended up working on the night of 31st, right? There was a launch and it was called the Command Center. The entire team was working the night of 31st into the New Year's, which is January 1st, 2013. So that night while working, I, ran into this leader at the organization who offered me a role on his team, which meant that, it was a quantum jump. I did not have to be a business analyst anymore, did not have to author documents, and everything happened overnight. That was the turning point in my career, and since then, there has been no looking back. I've always been in lead manager type positions, which was more sort of in my comfort space. And obviously, because of this new role, the salary jump was quantum too. So within a few months, right from not having any source of income, how Guruji, changed our career trajectory after 14 months of, just कहते हैं ना, कड़ी परीक्षा. That said, there was always a void that I knew I had to fill rather quickly because I was placed in a role without any foundational knowledge. This meant that I had to take a few courses and certifications without even having the required years of experience. Now, it's like when you feel your guru all the time, and maybe some people can relate to it, there's a voice in your head that talks to you and motivates you and inspires you. And the same thing happened to me again. You know, there was somebody who was my guiding force telling me, no, you need to forge ahead and do this, certification called the PMP, which is Project Management Professional Certification. And even to take that certification, you need certain amount of work experience. I filled in the application and, and I filled my work experience just to see if I could take the test. And sure enough, my application got flagged in a random audit, and I had to provide additional information around my work experience. But I was able to get my head of the department to sign the letter, and my application was approved. Now, once I signed up, we had a date set for the exam, and I started to prep for the exam. Now, that exam is a very by-the-book exam. You can have WorkX, but that test, for those of you who know PMP, is very, very by the book. You have to know specific terminology, jargons. You cannot, what I'm trying to say is that you cannot use your common sense to take that test. People with years of experience fail this exam because answering the questions based on your everyday experience won't do it for you. The study guide was known as the PMBOK, which is the Project Management Book of Knowledge, and it was such a dry and a ginormous book. Anyway, I took the exam and passed it in one shot, and this was nothing short of a miracle. At that time, it was a huge sense of accomplishment, not having the experience, yet, daring to take the certification, thanks to that voice in my head, which was Guruji, and he kept steering my life in the right direction and continues to do so. Life went on, and my career trajectory was looking good. From Cognizant, I moved to Deloitte. And this was also a satsang because I never failed to acknowledge that everything I got was definitely sooner and more than what I deserved. And the entire credit for that goes to my Guru Sahib. जैसे कहते हैं ना, हम तो थोड़ी मेहनत करते हैं, उनकी रहमत बहुत ज़्यादा है. For that opportunity too, I'm talking about my opportunity at Deloitte, a recruiter reached out to me out of the blue on LinkedIn, and Guruji carried me through 8 rounds of interviews on the phone and in person. When the new job came, it meant more responsibility, more travel every week. I did this for 2 years, and while it did create, some void at home, life was moving on at a neck-breaking speed, each day unfolding a new set of challenges, and his blessings kept me shining through those challenges. Between 2013 and 14, we were able to acquire 2 new homes with his grace. We purchased the home that we were currently living in back in 2011. Uske piche bhi ek chota sa satsang hai. The closing was a couple days away, and I was excitedly telling people about our plans to become new homeowners for the first time. And, Vikram was very hesitant, and he was a believer that you should only talk about the work when the work is done. However, my excitement knew no bounds. And I think more than the excitement, it's that faith that, yeah, I'm happy about it. And if it's good for me, it's going to happen. If it's not good for me, Guru Sahib will not let it happen. So right before closing, we discovered a few, hidden costs, which meant that, we had to, there was about 13,000 extra amount required. And we were short of that, on that amount back then. And because it was happening, the next day, the entire deal could have fallen apart. And believe me, Sangatji, the next day I get an unexpected wire transfer from my employer for that exact amount. I was not expecting it and knew in a jiffy that Guruji had pulled some strings. The closing happened and we bought a new home that we were living since 2009. Then we acquired a second home, named it Guru Ashiana, which was also a gift from him, because that home was, a dream house, given to us by our Guru Sahib. And, there were a lot of monthly satsangs that we did for a couple years. In fact, that home had been shown to Vikram in his dream. And he never wanted to move to Monroe. And I was like, no, I saw this home online. How the day we were supposed to go see that home, he felt sick. He was in the ER. So we couldn't keep the appointment with the realtor. But something in me was telling me that this is, Monroe is going to be the area. And, my then husband, he was not interested because his job was in the city. बट होता वही है जो हमारे खुदा मंजूर करते हैं, हमारे गुरु साहिब मंजूर करते हैं. सो वो घर मिला जिसमें हमने उसको लिटरली गुरुजी का घर बनाया और उनकी प्रेजेंस हर कोने में नजर आती थी. इनफैक्ट ये कुर्सी जो आप देख रहे हैं पीछे, this was the chair that was used for the first annual गुड़गांव सत्संग. उसके बाद जब भी गुड़गांव का एनुअल सत्संग होता था, यही कुर्सी, यही टेबल गुरु साहिब के लिए जाती थी. And this chair and table came after 7 long years. Claire Farms की जिन्होंने pictures देखी हैं या गुड़गांव annual सत्संग की pictures देखी हैं, in his physical form, Guruji actually sat on this chair and table. Such is his divine grace. And here's, a beautiful picture of Bada Mandir that, most of us have been fortunate to go and visit. Moving on to the next chapter. His blessings today, forever and beyond. जिसे हम कहते हैं ना कि सत्संग का तो कभी अंत हो ही नहीं सकता, because every moment, every पल is a सत्संग. हम जो ये श्वास ले रहे हैं, जो सांस ले रहे हैं, वो भी इनकी दीवी बख्शीश, इन्हीं का उपहार है, क्योंकि हमें तो ये भी नहीं पता कि अगली सांस आएगी कि नहीं आएगी. और that's why Guruji used to say, ego to the side, if but to the side. Because even till today, life में बहुत, and I'm a prime example. My life has changed. I lost some long-term relationships. I found some new meaningful relationships, and I stay strong on my journey because I have utmost faith in Guru Sahib. And like I said earlier, there is no bigger blessing than the blessing of unconditional, blind faith. So, looking back at May 31st, 2007, the day Guru Sahib left his chola, we always look at, and especially people who've met Guruji, look at that day as a black day in our lives. But it was, it is also Guruji who taught us to look for the silver lining in the darkest of clouds. जैसे कहते हैं ना कि हर situation में अच्छा ढूंढने की कोशिश करो, बेहतरी ढूंढने की कोशिश करो. When he was in his physical form, he was bound by his physical limitations of being a mortal. And despite being an enlightened soul, उनको भी, because वो शारीरिक रूप में उनके ऊपर भी बंदिशें थी. However, after leaving his physical garb, he broke free from those limitations, and his power, as well as his sangat, today has increased multifold. And हम सब इस बात के साक्षी हैं कि चोला छोड़ने के बाद गुरुजी की संगत कितनी बड़ी है. दिन दुगनी रात चौगनी हुई है उनकी संगत. कैसे? I vividly remember the fateful day because on May 29, 2007, I had to get a DNC done, which is, I lost my second child when I was carrying, this is back in 2007. And I was an emotional wreck because वो feeling होती है ना कि, I was feeling very lonely. And there was a fear of the unexpected. You don't know what to expect. You are feeling emotionally distraught. कुछ नहीं पता होता. You know that one, you've lost a life within you. Second, you don't know how painful the procedure would be. You don't know what the recovery time would be. And you also know that in the US, and back then, I had no help. And in fact, I had a 2-year-old at home. So I was very nervous going onto the operating table And again, हम सबका रामबाण एक ही. I held on to a small clip. उस टाइम गुरुजी के छोटे छोटे clip on स्वरूप्स मिलते थे. So I held on to that swaroop of Guru Sahib, and I requested the folks in the operation theater that please let this swaroop stay with me. And they asked me, whose picture is that? And I said, this is my God. I held on to it and I was put to sleep. I did not recall anything. When the procedure happened, how it happened, mujhe kuch nahi pata. I did not feel anything. I did not feel any pain during or after the DNC. I went home with a lot of mental agony, but there was no physical pain at all. And my parents were thousands of miles away back then. They were very concerned about my mental well-being. Being in the house because, my spouse then was very busy with work. I had a 2-year-old to care for, and they felt, parents felt very sort of crippled that हम इतने दूर बैठे हैं, हम फोन करने के अलावा और कर भी क्या सकते हैं. So they called me the next day, but there were no phone calls the morning of 31st. So I was like, really? They know that, just 2 days ago I went through this and I did not hear from my parents. So I called my mom, almost disappointed and ready to complain, when I heard her voice on the line and she was sobbing helplessly like a child. My heart sank and I just asked my mom, क्योंकि जब मैंने 31 मई को फोन किया उनको अपनी गिले शिकवे शिकायत रेडी लेकर के, आपने मुझे फोन कैसे नहीं किया. And when I heard my mom's voice, she was sobbing, and जैसे हम कहते हैं human mind, right? हम फटाफट we jump to conclusions. And I just said, Mom, what happened to Dad? मुझे लगा कि पापा को कुछ हो गया, right? And that's when she said, Guruji's no more. And हम सब अनाथ हो गए. These were her words. I still remember, Sangat ji. And I still get goosebumps reliving that unreal moment, because एक सेकंड के लिए मुझे लगा कि सारी सृष्टि को जीवन दान देने वाला कैसे चले गया, हमें छोड़ के कैसे चले गया. This is not even possible. This is unreal. और कितने सारे ख्याल, so many thoughts plagued my mind. How can someone who gave life to crores of people give up his own life? That's when all his words started to make sense. गुरुजी अक्सर कहा करते थे, मैंने चले जाना है. हम महापुरुष अपनी फाइल अपने आप खोलते हैं और अपने आप ही बंद करते हैं. मेरे जाने के बाद लाइनें लग जाएंगी. और ये अक्सर गुरुजी बोला करते थे कैजुअली, लेकिन हमें समझ नहीं आया. So, in English, I'll translate it really quickly, that he said, one fine day I will just leave. And saints like me decide when to come and when to go. And Sangat will come, there'll be long lines outside for darshan. And this was all part of the grand design orchestrated by Guru Maharaj. But his Sangat back then was deeply impacted. Talk to any old Sangat who were present. People were wailing. Aunties were passing out. बेहोश हो रहे थे देखकर, because it was very overwhelming. नई संगत बहुत lucky है that you guys did not have to go through all this. You did not witness this. और जब आपकी जिंदगी में गुरुजी आए, आपने उनको महाशिव के रूप में ही पूजा. लेकिन हमें लगता था that we lost our Sahara. Somebody who could, who we could go to and talk to and touch and feel and look at. We lost that. So it was a different impact. And, I've mentioned in my book also that we were so accustomed to having this place to go to. This guru who was tangible. Simply put, we could not imagine our lives without him. And by Guruji's grace, I think, like we saw, learned to look at the silver lining in the darkest clouds. The good news is that barring that tangibility factor, that feeling is still the same. His presence is still the same. Even though that we feel that, Guruji ko miss karte hain, unko, unki baatein, unki आवाज, उनको छूने का एहसास. But हम ये भी जानते हैं that निराकार होकर वो और भी शक्तिशाली हो गए हैं, और बल्कि अंग संग है, हर एक के अंग संग है. So another thing, while he was in his physical form, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian disease. I went to Guruji and he simply said, haldi wala dudh pi, which is have turmeric milk. After he left his physical form, I received the same message, but randomly from another Sangat. I was told that Guruji told that Sangat to tell me to have turmeric milk. You know, I still remember Auntie randomly walked up to me and she's like, I don't know why I'm telling you this. Guruji, you know, बार बार मेरे मन में डाल रहे हैं कि आपको ये message दिया जाए. She did not have that background that even in his physical form, Guruji said this to me. So, you know, like I mentioned, that lady had no context of my prior interaction with Guruji and just came to me out of the blue. This is just one of the many examples of how he guides you and continues to validate that it is him who is talking, either directly through telepathy or through a message from Sangat or any Shabad or even a satsang. When it's a when it's a message from the master, you will just know that and feel that, because this question comes up a lot कि आजकल बहुत लोगों को बहुत dreams आ रहे हैं, बहुत messages आ रहे हैं. Who do we believe on? Who do we not believe on? And my one-liner answer is your heart will tell you, because anything that's genuine, anything that you feel is just known, you know, between your soul and Guru Sahib, and a third person comes and validates that, you know, take it that it's a message from your master. And here is another beautiful picture of this cabinet in Empire State. Guruji कभी-कभी अगर 7 बजे से पहले, you know, आप दर्शन के लिए जाते थे, तो you would find Guruji sitting in his casuals, shorts पहने हुए, t-shirt पहने हुए इस cabinet के ऊपर. So with this, I conclude both the chapters. अगले हफ्ते, अगले weekend, last 2 chapters पढ़ेंगे. And thank you so much, Sangaji, for listening to my journey. And like I said, the journey goes on. Every second of our lives is a satsang. And all we pray and seek for is that Guruji अपने चरणों से दूर कभी मत करना, क्योंकि हम सबकी ये अरदास है, एटलीस्ट मेरी ये अरदास है आपसे, कि दिन ब दिन आपकी चरणों की प्रीति, you know, और चरणों से प्रीति बढ़ती रहे. और जब हमारी अल्टीमेट डेस्टिनेशन जो हम सब ने जाना है, जब हम जाएं, तो अपने आप को, हमारी रूह को आप ही के चरणों में पाएं. सदा शुक्राना महाराज. कोई भूल चूक हो गई हो संगत जी तो मैं क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ. ओम नमः शिवाय. शिवजी सदा सहाय. ओम नमः शिवाय. गुरुजी सदा सहाय. जय जय गुरुजी. धन धन गुरुजी.